Chapter 27. Stiff Drink. Ruby's scream tore from her lips as the lights blurred and wind rushed through her hair. The lights of Imperial Palace blurred into one as she picked up an incredible speed towards her doom. She felt her consciousness slipping away as the impending demise overwhelmed her senses, her vision blacking out and a strange calm coming over her. It was then, in the presence of death, that she felt something hot against her chest. It burned and scorched her awake. Reaching into her dress, she pulled out the red ring, its surface scalding hot, yet she felt an overwhelming urge to put it onto her finger. Despite herself, she managed to slip it on, and instantly felt the hot fire spread across her hand and up on her arm. She screamed as it raced onto her shoulder and through her body. A power began to course through her veins, a feeling of otherworldly strength. Her ring hand stretched out and dug into the glass window of the Imperial Palace. A shower of flying red glass and structural beams sliced into V's as she descended downwards and slowed her speed. She looked in astonishment at her arm, which now had a giant red gauntlet with clawed fingers like that of a dragon. Her speed slowed as she regained herself, the lights blurring of the palace now becoming floors she could see into. Bewildered people saw a girl in a red dress sliding down the side of the Imperial Palace with a red gauntlet on her arm. She managed to come to a stop and realized she could climb her way down to the ground using the gauntlet. It was after a few slides that she came to a window with a lot of people inside. Ruby stopped and saw that it was the ballroom she'd been escorted out from. Tapping on the window loudly, the room turned to see her, replete with the gauntlet hand. The prince made his way through the throng of women and to his horror saw Ruby smiling back at him, and with the gauntlet hand she gave him the middle finger before dropping out of sight. She giggled at herself at the pleasure of taking the edge and ruining his party as she descended down into the smog, where the noxious air made her cough as the hidden parts of Imperial were revealed. A shanty dirty and unclean underbelly revealed itself with scarcely a light to be seen, save for an occasional neon light or street lamp. Ruby descended once more from the palace and landed upon the ground. She stared back up at the palace, revealing the gash she'd left down on the side of it. They'll thank me for that, I'm sure, she thought to herself. She gathered her surroundings and headed off into an unknown darkness. As Ruby stole into the night, far above the smog inside the palace, the ballroom was in chaos. The Prince of Imperial, having realized what Ruby possessed, had to answer to his father. Amaranth had returned to see the gash down the side of his palace, and the edge he'd forbidden anyone but the prince from possessing, in the hands of Ruby. He dismissed the ladies from the ballroom with a thunderous yell, which scattered them, including Candy, who wobbled out of the ballroom, leaving the prince and the king alone. "Tell me what you saw," said King Amaranth in a deathly quiet voice. "She was outside the window, wearing the gauntlet. She gave me the finger and—" began Prince Garnet. "Are you sure it was the edge?" interrupted Amaranth. "How did you not know you didn't have it?" "It's exactly the same," he said, displaying the ring. Amaranth inspected it and batted out of his hands. "You fool! Even I can tell it's a forgery," making the prince yelp and draw back his hand in pain. "You were so busy sampling the ladies you let her escape with the most prized possession of Imperial. You will have to hunt her, Garnet, starting tonight." "But father, the women—" "Will wait. Once you have reclaimed what you have lost, you may choose a wife, not before. You have failed to uphold your duty as heir to the throne, and no heir rules without an edge. "You are dismissed," said King Amaranth. "But father—" "Go!" roared Amaranth, leaving the prince scrambling to escape, and the king alone on the ballroom floor. A swish of an approaching sound made Amaranth's head turn to reveal the woman in maroon, her head now covered in a black cowl. "You let her escape with the edge," she said plainly. "I didn't, he did," replied Amaranth hotly. "It matters not. She has what you need, and she can use it, something the prince could never do." "I know that," snapped Amaranth. "Why don't you help me get it back?" "It is your problem to solve, though I can aid you in solving it, for the appropriate fee." "What do you want me to give you now? Money, knowledge, influence? I've given you everything I have." "Not everything," said the woman mysteriously. "Not yet. There are others like her upon Gaia Amaranth, outsiders seeking the edges. One of them I have my eye on especially. We must not let them achieve their aim and take what is ours. We must take the edges for ourselves." "But we cannot take the edges outside of our origin. What of the grey?" The grey is a myth to scare children, Amaranth, chided the woman. The edges have power far beyond what you know. This is what you must do to win my favour. For this, Amaranth, she stroked his cheek, Gaia shall be yours to rule. You know what I want, said Amaranth. Why not give it to me now? Because you know a woman never gives things away easily. You must work for your rewards, she said seductively. I have longed for that reward ever since we met. You'll be waiting longer unless you get your edge back, she replied, moving away from him. You must think more broadly, Amaranth, for the world is yours for the taking, if only you could see it. If you are successful in gathering all the edges, the world shall be yours, and more. Amaranth dropped to his knees. I am yours to command, my lady, he said with fealty. Aid your son in finding the girl before she goes too far. She possesses power over the edge, which means she is pure blood. She must be brought back to the palace for examination. I think there is more to her than we previously thought. Yes, my lady, said Amaranth, rising up and exiting the ballroom, leaving the lady to gaze out to the Red City. Soon it shall be returned to me. That was stolen all those years ago. The flood is coming, and all shall be swallowed by it. She smiled and cackled loudly, echoing in the empty ballroom. Far below, Ruby made her way through the winding streets of Imperial. Far from the menacing sword of Imperial, she found herself lost amidst the rabbit warren of roads and intersections that made up the city below. Ramshackle houses of mud bricks and iron made up the buildings she passed. Tired and dilapidated, she saw figures crouched in doorways, huddling for warmth amidst the cold night. Ruby felt the wind chill to her bone as she stumbled down the street, the rough stones making her heeled shoes difficult to navigate. She spied a bar illuminated in the darkness, hoping to seek shelter from the wind and find warmth within. Upon entering, she found a lone barfly sat with her back to Ruby, while an elderly barmaid locked eyes with her. We don't serve your kind here, said the barmaid sharply. My kind? Replied Ruby, confused. Your fancy clothes make you from above the clouds. You are not welcome here. Go back up, she said. As she did so, the barfly turned, revealing an aging man with an eye patch and weathered face. I'm not from above the clouds, shot back Ruby. I'm not from Imperial at all. The barmaid snorted. Don't try and fool me. I've seen enough of your kind down here causing trouble for the locals, robbing, stealing, even straight murder. Go on. Wait, said the barfly. What's that on your arm? Ruby studied her arm, now illuminated in the glow of the red lights. Stretching from her elbow to her fingers was a menacing dragon gauntlet. It had scales and shimmered as she turned it over. It's from a fancy dress party, said Ruby. Get her a drink, said the barfly. But what about, began the barmaid. She has credits if she's from up there. Besides, she means us no harm. Don't you, love? Said the barfly. No, absolutely not, Ruby nodded. What'll it be? Asked the barmaid, exasperated. Beer, replied Ruby. You mentioned not serving people from above the clouds, said Ruby carefully as the barmaid pulled the beer. Why? You really aren't from above the clouds then, I take it, said the barmaid with a sniff. Ruby nodded as the barfly listened in. That smog you see hovering above our heads is thanks to the royals. We get squeezed for every credit while those greedy dragons hang above us, choking the life out of us at the same time. Nothing good comes from them royals, I tell you. Not for the working class. We're a dying breed, especially now they've got robot miners. Hardly an industry that ain't robotic now. You've got robots working in the mines? Said Ruby inquisitively. Course they have. Better a bot than a person, you know. No brakes needed for a bot, except if it breaks down, of course. Otherwise, they don't need to be cared for. Not food nor water. Just being loyal and obedient. That's how they like it. What about the other industries like retail and tech? Asked Ruby, taking a swig of her red beer which tasted like apples. Retail's been overrun by the nanos. Down here we still create and serve person to person, but up there it's all bots. No one does anything by hand. Ruby remembered the floating drinks tray inside the palace and creating her dress. Tech is the same, continued the barmaid. Since the heads took over all the major corporations, everything is bots. There ain't much else for us with the way things are going, which is the way Imperial seems to want to go. Only a matter of time till Imperial takes over all of Gaia. Who are the heads? Asked Ruby. The black and white heads, of course. Ruby spat out her drink and began to cough. They're working together, she said after composing herself. I was shocked as you were when I heard the news myself. Nothing good comes from those blackheads, so it was strange to see why whiteheads partnered up with them. Some big merger or some such. Though the whiteheads seem to be doing just fine, There must be much more going on behind the curtains. Whatever is going on, bots are booming and taking over nearly all the human work. She trailed off, with a hint of foreboding in her voice. Is there a headquarters somewhere? For the heads? Asked Ruby. Naturally, but you don't want to go there. Well, not either of them anyway. Maybe the Whiteheads for a time in the mountains in the north, but they've been snowed in for months. No one in, no one out. As for the Blackheads, well, no one goes there. It's not safe to travel to the deep chasm of the world where they reside. A scary place that's full of dark and mysterious things, she finished with a shudder. Ruby had an idea to try and get north, maybe try and find a Whitehead to help her get home again, with her ship being taken by Imperial. How do I get out of the city? She asked. Out? Replied the barmaid. Why do you want to get out? Suspicious of Ruby's question. I have to meet someone, lied Ruby. Someone in one of the major cities. You need a permit to leave. Without one, you'll be vaporized on sight for abandoning Imperial as a traitor, said the barmaid, deadly serious. You can't leave, said Ruby, aghast. Of course you can't. This is the greatest city on Gaia. Why would anyone try and leave? She said with mocking grandiosity. They'd rather us dead than leave, said the gruff voice next to Ruby. The patron turned, an eye patch covering their weathered face. Ruby did a double take, thinking it was a man at first, but realized it was a woman, her sharp nose and short hair belying her sex. Why is that? Asked Ruby, somewhat drawn to her mysterious appearance. The woman leaned back, revealing a long concealed sword on the inside of her floor-length red coat as she turned to face Ruby. Her weathered hands folded in her lap as she studied Ruby with one bright eye. Why are you so concerned with why? She asked, arching a scarred eyebrow. Ruby felt herself fumbling over her words. Because I need to get back to my friends, replied Ruby, shrinking under her gaze. What friends of yours are outside of Imperial? She asked, narrowing her eyes with suspicion. Friends who would like the edge of Imperial back? Ruby got off her seat, sensing the danger of being caught. She's wearing the edge, gasped the barmaid. Quiet now, said the old barfly. You don't know who might be listening. The barmaid held her mouth shut as the one-eyed woman turned to Ruby, who had her back against the wall. My name is Flamber. I mean you no harm, young lady, but what you possess can get you into an awful lot of trouble. Ruby sat back down, her heart beating in her chest.